waking up, you're swollen, you're coming out of anesthesia, you don't even really know what's going on. I'm all bound up in bandages, but I very vividly remember this massive relief and pride. Like you did it. You have arrived. You
Yeah.
you are finally in a body that feels like yours.
Hello. Nick and I are here, and we are so excited to have our guest, Sydney Dressler. Sydney is a transgender male who was born and raised in Indiana, has been married for 9 years, attended Anderson University, and has a degree in psychology. Sydney currently works for Pacers Sports and Entertainment. And we are so glad to have you here today, Sydney, and appreciate your time and your sharing of some of your story.
Yeah, thank you so much for the introduction. I'm really honored to be here and just get to share my story and provide a face and a voice and just a personalized touch to an important topic.
Yeah, yeah. It's a generous gift to us. We appreciate it very much. I want to highlight something that was just recently awarded to you because this is just really cool. You just recently received a DEI award for your work in DEI. Tell us a little bit about that if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, I work for Pacer Sports and Entertainment. This is my second season with them, and I was graciously awarded the inaugural Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Champion Award. This is offered by our DEI team. I was nominated and selected by a group of peers in that department as well. Just honoring the work that I've done and creating safe and welcoming places at work, but also highlighting some things that I've done outside of work as well, like this podcast
Yeah.
and amongst other things. But very honored. I certainly don't feel deserving, but it was a really great surprise by my peers and coworkers, and very much made me feel supported as well in the
Sure.
workplace.
Sure. And kudos to Pacers Sports and Entertainment for even having such an award this year, and I'm sure you are very deserving of that.
Can we talk a little bit about DEI is kind of a hot
Mm.
topic and
Yeah.
kind of a dirty word in some circles. What does DEI encompass in this?
Yeah, for me, at work, that looks like I'm at the HR department, so we're about as inclusive and welcoming as it
Yeah.
comes. But we get to be that first face and touch point for new hires. And we have people from all over. Really, the intriguing thing for me working here has been my past workplaces have all been very centered around people that have been born and raised in Indiana. And that's just kind of, it's always been local people that I've worked with. In coming here, we have people who move for this job frequently and are coming from all over the country, internationally. And, that means we all come from different backgrounds and cultures and beliefs and have different lived experiences. So, really getting to be that inclusive, welcoming face for all of our new hires is an important piece for me in my work. And then, obviously, with my volunteerism in the community, I past worked at a public elementary school and trying to devote a lot of time back there as well. Again, looking at our neighborhoods and the kids that attend this school and wanting everyone to feel welcome and safe no matter where they're coming from and no matter what their story looks like.
Well, thank you for that work in our community. Matters. I want to ask you if you will look back to growing up years and just help us understand or to just kind of take us to those places when you were little. What was it like, and when did you first start noticing that you were experiencing life differently than your assigned birth?
Sure. Yeah, so I grew
Yeah.
up on the south side of Indianapolis. My family's very traditional
Yeah.
Christian home of you show up on Sunday morning, you hold hands, you smile,
Yeah.
everything's good, and you sit in the
Yeah.
front row. and then you volunteer all throughout the week, and you're voluntold for VBS, and you're just always there. And by no means was that a negative experience. I do look back and have really great memories at my church growing up and the community that I had there. And I credit my parents for kind of giving me that foundation and a good place. Now, with that comes kind of a conservative traditional household. And so I don't think that the topic of anything LGBTQ related was ever brought up in our home. I mean, I think back to like literally to the day I came out, which was in the later years of college. I don't know that I ever had a conversation with my family about this topic. Not even necessarily in regards to me, just like how they felt. I had no
Yeah.
idea.
In general.
Yes, in
Yeah.
general. And so as a kid, I had no language to express anything in this realm of my life, of how I was feeling around gender and identity. And so without language, there wasn't a conversation. There wasn't an external conversation happening, but there also wasn't an internal conversation happening either with myself, because I just literally did not have words to put to how I was feeling. And so as a young kid, I remember all the way back to like lower elementary school. Those were really kind of my first remembered experiences of like, I think I'm functioning in a little bit of a different way than the people around me. But I don't know why, and I don't know how to share that. And at least from a very like vivid memory standpoint, I can remember in lower elementary school that, the teacher would say, oh, it's time for the boys to line up. And I remember instinctually, it's like you hear that, and it was like, oh, and then I had to stop myself, and it's like, oh wait, that's not me. I'm not supposed to be standing up
Yeah.
right now. Um, and even though instinctually I wanted to, and same with using the restroom, it was like, okay, boys are going this way, girls are going this way, and it was almost this like you have to train yourself and stop yourself and remember like, okay, which one am I supposed to be going into? And as a young kid, it was like I'm certainly not talking to this about this with my friends in first and
Yeah.
second grade,
Yeah.
but kind of stepping back and recognizing, that might be different, but really not putting a second thought to it because I didn't
Yeah.
know what that meant.
Yeah.
And so I can very vividly remember those feelings and emotions, but I also know that it was there and then I just put it behind me.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of move on because you don't know what it's about,
Yes. Yeah.
and you don't know how to talk.
Yeah. Says so much about our sense of self
Mm,
that is so innately a part of who we are from the time we're born. And my mama's heart feels for that little boy,
yeah,
just um, maybe some lonely feelings in that,
sure.
even though you didn't take time to process. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
My parents did a wonderful job of, I was extremely blessed and grateful for them that,
yeah,
when it came to clothing items, they did not care one bit. Um,
wow,
at the time,
that's
also clothing department stores were a little bit different. So I played basketball growing up, and if I wanted to have a shirt with a basketball graphic on it, I had to go to the boys section because they
yeah,
just didn't make them in the girls
yeah,
section. So I grew up wearing, Michael Jordan clothes and Air One,
yes,
logos and Champion brand things that were all boys from the boys department. And never once did my parents say anything. It was very much just go pick out the clothes that you would like to wear. The end.
bravo,
So yes, lots
gosh,
of lots of credit to them for that.
yeah, that's a
Again,
big deal.
whether that was intentional or not, I really don't know. Those were
Yeah,
conversations we never had, and
yeah.
I think that they just valued self-expression, and truly didn't care.
Yeah. Oh, that's significant. That's a big deal. There's so much with just what you just have shared. I think about language, and even now, I think we're limited. The regular family experience, we're limited in our language about gender identity and sexual orientation, and in our ability to have conversations, especially when kids are younger. I think we're getting better at it, but what I'm just going to leap to, if you could kind of explore a little bit, what would you say to parents of kids who are experiencing these kinds of feelings and thoughts about who they are, that are in conflict with their birth assigned gender, and if the child does express any of that, what would you say to parents? What to watch for? What, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. For a parent, I would say, don't panic. It's okay. There are so many ways that we can provide self-expression and outlets of identity exploration that don't immediately run to medical. And I think that that's where everyone's brain goes is,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, they're going to make this decision and never be able to change it again. And
Yeah.
it's okay. Calm down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Clothing is a very simple way that
Yes.
they can choose whatever clothes they'd like to wear, and it hurts no one.
Yes.
And this is something that can be very fluid, and it's okay. It's just such an easy, well, I won't say easy because it was a difficult thought for me, but it's
Yeah.
an easy way in which we can give our kids um, control over their identity,
Yeah.
and get to say, this is what I like and this is what I feel good in. And that at the end of the day is what matters, is what do you feel good in? What makes you feel proud to be in your own skin?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and there's lots of ways to do that. Clothing, haircuts, um, names. We have nicknames for our kids. I have nicknames for myself. We have crazy names for our grandparents that our kids choose. You know, it it's not, it doesn't have to be as serious as we like to make it. And we can really give kids a lot of freedom of expression in those ways.
Well, I've always thought that people who are concerned about medical transition and about the, quote unquote irreversibility of that, and that being such a kind of line in the sand moment for people, and worried that you're going to make that decision and then later experience regret, that if that is your animating concern, that you should be particularly supportive of social transition, at the earliest possible expression of an interest in that, because that is, entirely reversible, quote unquote reversible. That's something that you can try, and if 6 months into it you decide, I'm not, that this doesn't fit me, okay, you grow your hair out, or you cut your hair, or you go back to using your first name instead of your middle name, or
Sure.
whatever, right? That you should be encouraging this kind of exploration, precisely because that's much lower stakes than things that come in later down the line.
Sure,
Hmm.
sure. And quite frankly, I mean, we worry about kids bullying and that mentality, and I also feel like kids are probably the least harmful,
Yeah.
um, because they really don't care at the end of the day. Um, I won't say that broadly. I think when you get up into, upper grade levels, that middle school's rough no matter what.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
that's just horrible
Hmm.
for everyone. Um, but I think that, yeah, I think to my own transition that I was post college, I was in my career, and now I'm transitioning. Talk about a spotlight of adults, and
Yeah.
that is all they care about. uh, and how public that was. That I do wish I could have done that sooner. Certainly before my career had started. And now I'm on this platform for everybody to watch it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as you started, how did that evolution happen? As you started, uh, you didn't have the language. You
Hmm.
you were a kiddo, and experiencing these things, but kind of putting them in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
But as that evolved, and what was that evolution? What did that look like?
Yeah, so as a lower elementary school, I very much was what you would categorize a tomboy of wearing boys' clothing, and I played basketball and I played football at recess with the guys, and I was on the drum line in high school and very male dominant things.
Yeah.
But really through probably starting like middle school through high school, I really started to feel that social pressure of you need to dress more feminine. I dated cisgender males, really just to conform and almost test myself of this is what I think I'm supposed to be. Like, this is what the world tells me I'm supposed to look like and do and feel. I will do my best to perform and be that.
Hmm.
But knowing daily, again, this narrative of I'm putting on a show,
Yeah.
and still not having the language to understand that until much later in life. But knowing the person I see in the mirror is not the person who is inside of me.
Hmm.
And really having this disconnect. We talked briefly before this in writing about gender dysphoria,
Yeah.
and I could
Yeah.
not be a more textbook definition
Yeah. Yeah.
of understanding that the person I see and the physical image in front of me is not what I feel inside.
Yes.
Um, and so for my transition, that was middle school, high school, college. Um, I dated a cisgender male in college.
Yeah.
And we're talking, I'm 19, 20 years old now,
Yeah.
and college was really not just for my gender identity, but also for everyone, I think, a big moment in life where your world expands.
Hmm.
Um, you leave home, you leave your hometown, you leave all the social circles that you were in for forever. Um, and so even from a faith perspective, for me, it was very eye-opening of there's a lot of world out here I've not seen and experienced. Um, and so that really started my exploration and understanding of who am I. And I knew you need to do some work.
Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah.
And so college was really that pivotal time for me of who are you and how do you get the inside spirit, heart, soul to match the outside.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
or I guess the opposite. Sorry, the outside to match the inside.
Yes. Yes. So those
um,
are congruent, and yes.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So I met my wife in between. I met my wife at the end of our freshman year. We started dating after our sophomore year. Um, this was a really world-shattering experience for both of us
Well,
because
yes, because you were operating as a female. You
yes,
were, yes, and so you were engaged in this, yes, this
hmm yeah,
same sex relationship.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, we
Yeah.
started dating. Neither of us had ever dated in a
Yeah.
same-sex relationship before,
Yeah.
and it was really like a alarm bells are going off. Oh my gosh, what's happening? What are we doing? Are we going to hell? Are we going to die? I don't know. Are our
Yeah.
parents going to disown us? I mean, it was just panic all
Yeah.
around.
A lot.
Um, and in that, we really kind of had to seclude ourselves from the world
Mm.
around us,
Mm.
almost as a protective barrier.
Sure.
And so that time from sophomore through senior year, we did not come out to anybody. We really distanced ourselves from our friends, extremely distanced ourselves from our families. We showed up at holidays and that was about it. Um, and so it was very much a protective factor of I don't know how safe it is out in the world, and I'm still figuring out who I am, and I'm certainly trying to figure out who we are together, um, trying to figure our faith out, all of those things.
Sure.
Um, and again, acquiring language, just because we come out and we say, oh, I'm in a same sex relationship, does not mean we just like accumulate this vocabulary.
Right.
And
In a
so
heteronormative
yes,
world,
I
yes, we
say all the
haven't.
time that like
Yeah.
we were Googling just as many things as everybody else.
Thank you.
We don't know the terminology and we got to learn it too. And
Hmm.
so it very much was a period of exploration, learning about myself, learning about the world around us, and finding my identity,
Yeah.
and what that meant.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh gosh. So many things. I'm sorry. I'm going back to something you said when you were describing your experience as a middle schooler.
Hmm.
You described the experience, and then you said this daily knowledge of this dissonance
Hmm.
of what was going on in the inside and what was going on the outside. Again, I think that just speaks to it. It wasn't like, because all, like you say, all middle schoolers, we're just trying to figure it out, trying to test things and see where do I fit in and how do I fit in, and when you use the word daily, that again, that's that clue that this is something that's very true about me and about my own experience and my own life.
Sure.
Yeah. So
Yeah. So when Jenna, my wife, and I met and
yeah,
started dating, labels are an extremely big piece to this.
yeah,
The
yeah,
world really wants to be able to put a label and put you in a
yeah,
box,
yeah,
and this is where you fit, and don't
yeah,
leave that box.
yeah.
And so when we started dating, it became this conversation between the two of us of, okay, what do we call ourselves?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because at the time I was identifying as she, her, and
Yes.
female, and I did not at that time really transitioning and being transgender was not still not a conversation,
Yeah.
still not language that I had to express. But what we knew was that calling ourselves, saying like, oh, we're in a lesbian relationship or
Yeah.
I identify as a lesbian,
Yeah.
we knew that there was a disconnect there,
Yeah.
for both of us. And so we really reverted back when we eventually came out to our families and some of our friends. We really described ourselves as just being in a same-sex relationship.
Okay.
And that's what we fell back to because we knew externally on pen and paper the world would call us lesbians, and that still did not fit for us. And
Yeah.
again, didn't have the language to
Yeah.
explain why.
Yeah.
We just said, it's not
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that was difficult to explain because people very much were like, okay,
Yes.
so you're this.
Yeah.
And it's like, well,
Yeah. Yeah.
no, we're not.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't have anything else following up to say from
Yeah.
that other than we're
Yeah.
not. Um,
And
Wow,
this would have
Sydney.
been what, the early 2010s,
yes, correct.
The
So
Obama years.
yeah, we came out to our families and really just a select few friends at AAU, and a couple of our professors, um, in the winter of our senior year. So again, we started dating end of sophomore year over that summer through senior year. Um, did not come out to anybody, and then decided it's time. Let's start coming out to some people. And yeah, from a family perspective, um, some things went well, some things did not go well.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's to be expected. Overall, I would say extraordinarily blessed. We are quite frankly not the norm when you look at LGBTQ couples and the support systems they have, and we recognize that. We have an abundance of support in so many areas of our life and are very fortunate, that I think very few have. So we certainly don't take that for granted. Coming out to my family, um, I came out to my mom. My father passed away in high school, so not something I ever got to experience or share with him. But coming out to my mom, it was difficult because again, we'd never had those conversations. I had no idea her stance on the LGBTQ community. My mom kind of personally lives in kind of a sheltered doesn't care what's going on in the world lifestyle. And so for me, I was like, I have no clue how she's going to respond. Um, and I will give her all the credit till the day I die that, the very first thing she said after I came out was, I love you. And that was all she really cared that I knew in that moment was, I love you. I'll have questions later, but like I don't. All I care about right now is that you know I
Gotcha.
love you, and that has not changed.
Wow.
And so for me, that was an extremely safe environment for me to come out into, being scared to death, and then just like a wave of relief, and very much a feeling of coming home. I had distanced myself for so long from family and from home that this felt like I can just breathe. Um, my sister very much responded and said, like, this is not news to me. I could have told you that like 20
I
years
love.
ago.
Wow.
And so that was to be expected. Love her to
Yeah.
pieces.
Yeah.
She did not care one bit. She's very happy for us. So my experiences were very positive. My wife came out to her family. We did this separately. So I came out to my family by myself. She did with hers. And for the most part, I'd say her family was somewhat hesitant. They had a lot of questions. Her brother is very similar to my sister. I mean, he was honestly just sad that he didn't know sooner. And
Nice.
he was like, I would have loved to support you
What a
more
gift. That's
throughout the
cool.
years. Yeah.
Mm, that's cool.
Her parents were a little more hesitant. She has grandparents on her side. I did not. That was another factor in it of how do we tell grandparents, and what does that look like? However, I will also give her parents an insane amount of gratitude because being so hesitant and being so unsure of what our future looked like, and really I think some fear behind that too of the public image. Um, they have come leaps and bounds, and they have us 100%. They would go to battle for us and
Yeah.
love us unconditionally, and have always embraced me as family, and for that I'm grateful. They've done a ton of work to get to that place.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a beautiful story, and I even when you described your experience uh, at AU and that your world kind of opened up and you were able to pay more attention to what was going on for um, your own awareness about yourself. There's some pretty healthy pretty healthy approaches that doesn't come from a void, that comes from supportive environments, and I appreciate hearing that. I Because like you say, not everybody has those supportive environments, and I'm thankful to hear that was at least a part of your experience. Is there anything that you could tell us? Fallout maybe is too too strong a word, but were there any experiences that were not that that where that were really hard
Yeah,
and
sure.
broke broken
Yeah,
in that?
coming out to friends was really difficult. And again, kind of a 50-50 split of um, the friends on my side of life tended to be a little bit more like, great, we don't care.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Thanks for letting us know.
Yeah.
And I think my wife and her friend group struggled quite a bit more. There was a lot of feelings. I, if I can speak on their behalf, of
Yeah.
betrayal, of
Mm.
we just feel like we've been lied to,
Yeah.
and this was happening for so long behind our
Yeah.
backs type thing.
Yeah.
And really not an understanding of we had to distance ourselves.
Yeah.
We had
Yeah.
to keep this close to home.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Not for we didn't know what you'd think, or we didn't want you to be involved, but for safety.
Yeah.
Again, at the time we were students at Anderson University, and we were unsure of what
Of
that looked like
course.
if we were to come out publicly.
Of
And quite
course.
frankly, as seniors at that point, with not even half a semester to go, it's like, yeah, I'm not risking that.
No,
We're
wise.
we're at the finish line here, and we're gonna make it to the finish line,
Sure.
and we were just really unsure of what that looked like. So it was not a
Yeah.
risk we wanted to take,
Yeah.
and there was just nothing clear enough publicly of where the university would stand and what might happen. That again, it was not a risk worth taking, being that close to graduation.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's wisdom. Yeah, that's wisdom on your part. Hmm.
Yeah, it's always a real frustration when you have a system that sort of enforces secrecy, and then you also get criticism for trying to stay under the radar of such a
Sure.
system, right?
Okay. So, in a same-sex relationship, you graduated, and when were you able to, when did Jenna first know from you that a transition what was a possibility or was something that you were considering?
Yeah, yeah, several years down the road.
Yeah, yeah.
We graduated in 2015, got married in 2016. Again, I still identified she, her, and attended not, and this was a preference we had talked about. I didn't want to be called wife. Again, there
Oh,
was that disconnect of like,
yeah,
this label doesn't fit. I don't know why,
yeah,
but it
yeah,
doesn't.
yeah.
So she said spouse, always, and that was something she respected, and like almost back to childhood again of like, hmm, there's something wrong or a disconnect, but like I can't put any further thought through it, so like it's going to the
Yeah,
back,
yeah,
and we're
yeah.
just gonna move on. There was
You were
not,
happily married. You had this
yeah,
wonderful person in your life, and
yeah.
yeah, you
Yeah,
were
so I
thankful.
had at that point, I had cut my hair. I started dressing more masculine. And so I was starting that exploration of this is bringing a lot of gender euphoria, of
Yeah.
this is feeling a little bit closer to being comfortable in my own skin.
Wow.
This visual representation of myself in the mirror feels a little bit more like Sydney.
Yeah.
Um, I look back on pictures and I certainly wasn't there yet, but I went through some bad haircuts. uh, but I was starting that process,
Yeah.
and very thankful because, you look at wedding photos, those are once in a lifetime. You get those done, and
Yeah.
I look like I'm 12, but I very much appreciate that. I did have short hair, and I did wear a suit and a vest, and that kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Um, but at that point, I had not started transitioning. Again, being transgender was not on the radar. Very much was not. Jenna even quite frankly asked me point blank and said, "Is this something you ever want to do?" And I said, "No."
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so again, it was, and I think that was kind of a knee-jerk panic reaction of nope, and I don't want to talk about it because maybe it's true.
It's too
um,
much right now.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 But same as when we came out, and kind of advice that I had told my mom was, because she did say, she said, I had been wondering for a while, but her therapist had advised her, you can't bring it up. Sydney's got to bring it up.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I go back to that and I say, even with Jenna, my wife, that her bringing up that I was transgender, it couldn't come from her. And so immediately it was a no. It was a no, and I don't want to talk about it. And it, I'm able to look back on it now and say, it just had to come from me. I had to recognize that and realize that in myself and really embrace that identity before I could accept it and share it with others.
Yeah.
And so I tell my mom all the time, I say, if you would have asked me the day I came out to you a long time ago, if Jen and I were together, I would have said no. And I would have
Yeah.
panicked and I would have left. Because again, that had to come from me.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about what can you share with parents or family members or
Yes.
support systems, that's
Yes.
huge. Of don't ask, because they will let you know when they're ready.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if you're 99.9999% sure you know the answer, they're going to deny it unless it can come from themselves.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so sit there in the waiting and be okay with it. Be supportive, be welcoming and inclusive, and open the door for those conversations to be had. So, to answer your question,
No, that's good. This is so
uh,
helpful. It
um,
means a lot.
wedding 2016, I still identify as she, her. Probably 2 years. We're looking at 2018, is really when I started to say, I think there's more here. I think there's more work I need to do on my identity and who I am. Um, and how I came to that conclusion is a hard thing to talk about because the world very much loves to grab onto a string or a sentence and take it so many places.
Yeah.
And you'll understand this, but I saw an acquaintance online and they were also transitioning. And this was the first transgender person that I knew of,
Yes.
that I was kind of watching in real time explore their own identity.
Hmm.
And I had to sit back and say, and really what intrigued me or what caught my interest was, why am I so obsessed with this person's journey?
Yeah.
Why am I constantly going
Yeah.
back to like, what's going on now? What's the
Yeah.
update? How are things going?
Yeah.
I'm going to start a conversation with this person. Why this is not someone I have known super, like, this is not a childhood friend. This is not
Yeah.
someone I went to college with. This is
Yeah.
a very loose acquaintance
Yeah.
through a mutual friend that I
Yeah.
was all of a sudden like blinders on,
Yeah.
focused. I want to see what's happening, and understand what's happening and acquire some language around. And so why I say that I hesitate with that is we can take that and we can spin that and we can say, oh, well, transgender people are open, so now other people, kids, are going to be influenced by this.
Sure.
Um, and that is a really difficult narrative to
Yeah.
navigate.
Yeah.
Because, yes, did I explore this identity because of the visibility of someone else? Yes. And would I have ended up here anyway? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
just would have taken me a lot
Mm-hmm.
longer, and
Mm-hmm.
it would have probably looked a lot different, and it likely would have been even more painful, and lonely because I wouldn't have navigated that with someone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So really, this visibility gave me a support system to say,
Yes.
hey, I've been watching you and following along your journey, and it's really resonating with me. And I'd like to know, what do I do and who do I talk to in the
Yes.
appropriate channels
Yeah.
to do this.
Yeah.
So that's really where I started my transition,
Yeah. Yeah.
at least medically speaking, and
Yes.
saying, okay, who do I
Yes.
call? I don't even know.
Sure.
I'm Googling all kinds of things.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah, and so I started my medical transition in 2019. In 2018, I made the call, and said I was interested in becoming a patient at the Gender Health Clinic at Eskenazi. And I was met and greeted with a very welcoming, we are so thrilled that you are here and we want to have you as a patient. And there is an 8-month wait list.
Huh.
Uh,
Yeah.
and that was devastating to me
Yeah.
because I had mustered up all of this courage.
Of
And at
course.
that point, I'd made my decision
Yeah.
because I have fully, I'm not going to take this lightly. This is my life. This is my future. This is my identity. I know what I want. I'm ready to pursue. I've grabbed the phone and am shaking having this conversation. And then they're like, great, lovely. Sit on that for 8 months by yourself.
Yeah. Yes.
um,
Wow.
I hope that that is not the case anymore. I really, truly don't know. I know there are not many providers at the clinic. I know that funding is extremely slim, so it would not surprise me if that is still the case. I can't speak on behalf of them, that I don't know. But my experience was I had to wait for 8 months. However, once I was able to get in and see the clinician, I met with a social worker first for a social history, and then February of 2019, I started testosterone. And that was the beginning of my medical transition.
Mhm.
And from there, once I finally got to meet the doctor, things went very smoothly, very quickly, no lapses in treatment there, anything like that. It was just a matter of getting through that initial processing time and wait list to see the doctor.
I appreciate what you said, the caution about what helped you to kind of free up to explore this part of yourself that you had been aware of your whole life. And yet that that was the place that you were.
So around that time is when right before I started my medical transition, that was when I came out to my family again. A second
Okay.
time, yippee! I got to do it
Yes.
twice. I'm so lucky. And quite frankly, went very well the second time.
Good, good, good.
My family was very supportive. Jenna's family was very supportive. We laugh all the time and joke that, as far as grandparents are concerned, we kind of gave them exactly what they wanted is you can call Sydney my husband and say he, him.
Yeah.
Turns out I'm not in a same-sex relationship.
Yeah.
Yes.
And um, yeah, I think for my mom in particular, this was conversations that we had, and my sister is obviously, and she's always my number one warrior behind me. And really, I feel like the only place that my mom struggled was um, language,
Yeah.
acquiring language around the
Yes.
transgender community, but also pronoun usage and understanding. She did not struggle with me in person. I'm not sure how to word this, but she did not struggle with me in person. She used he, him if I was present.
Hmm.
However, if I was not in the room, and obviously my sister's calling me, telling me this, she would not use the correct pronouns. So
Okay.
then, if I'm not there, she's then saying she, her. And my
Okay.
sister Johnny is like, no, 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 that's not how this works.
Correcting mom.
Yes, yeah. So she's always my safety net there. And really doing an educational piece of, okay, but when Sydney's not here, you are representing him and you have to be that line of support. And if you're not using them, no one else is going to think they need to use
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Um, and I know she had a lot of conversations behind the scenes with mom of walking her through many different conversations and
Yeah.
pieces to my transition, and certainly love her to death for that.
Yeah. It sounds
uh,
like that's,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But Jenna's family is very supportive. Again, and we very graciously opened up to and said, like, just ask us the questions you want to ask us.
Yeah.
That's going to be the least painful, I feel like, for everyone. And I'd rather you have the correct information from me than you know, assuming incorrectly.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, that's been my experience with a couple of friends who are transgender. Just the willingness to educate me when I'm, you know, working at gaining knowledge and language. And if they see my effort, they've been really great about saying, well, this might be a little better, or
Hmm.
yeah.
Um, so how does it hit you when, and I want to pose two different but similar situations, but when people with the best will in the world just accidentally get it wrong and misgender you, use dead name. I don't know if dead name's relevant, but use incorrect pronouns. And how does it hit you when people just disregard your pronouns or even try to weaponize gender against you? How do those two different things land with you?
Yeah. Previously, from my current workplace, I worked for a public school, and that is actually where I transitioned. That's where my transition started. And so um, it was lovely because not only did I have,
Can't imagine.
coworkers to come out to and watch me essentially go through puberty a second time at the age of,
Yeah.
20 something.
Wahoo.
I also had 400 children that got to watch that. And so that certainly added a dynamic to my coming out and transition story was just that I had a whole school watching,
Wow.
um, and they were all really confused too.
Mm,
um, yeah, so I did run into many situations over my transition where, at that point, I'd worked at the school for many years. The kids all knew me as Miss Sydney. My coworkers, use she, her as my pronouns because that's what I identified as for many, many years
yes.
with them. That is how they knew me. And, um, you know, when I came out and changed my pronouns and said, these are my pronouns and this is what I want to use. Again, this was many conversations being had behind the scenes of our staff. Um, Social worker was one of my best friends at the school, which was great. All puns intended. I physically hid in a closet during the staff meeting in which they told everyone that I was changing my pronouns and this was the expectation. And the irony is not lost on me in that. But I was like, I do not want to be found. You guys do the meeting. I trust you, but like, I cannot be present.
That's awesome.
And what the leadership in the school decided, social worker, principal, we all sat down and talked about this and said, we obviously are going to announce it to staff. And we're going to say, this is a choice that he's made, he, him, here on out. There's really not any discussion about that. However, we have 400 kids, and how are we going to do this? And timing wise, we were, I believe, coming off of a summer break, I think. And so, or it was the end of a school year, maybe, or something like that, where we had said, all right, when we come back, fresh start. And as the adults in the building, we are simply modeling this. We are not announcing it. This is not a public announcement. That is not what we want to teach the kids either, that this is some public announcement and should be shared with anybody and everybody. We as the adults are going to start modeling and using Sydney's pronouns he, him. There will be follow-up questions by the kids. And how do we handle that? And that's more where the conversation was in that staff meeting of how do we handle that? And really it came down to, again, same conversation we had with the adults. It is what it is. It is not up for debate. These are Sydney's pronouns. If you have further questions from that, happy to connect you with the social worker in a private setting and applaud them
No
1,000% for how
kidding.
they handled it.
Yeah, it
We
seems
had
really good
kindergarten.
pedagogically.
Yeah,
Yes.
we had kindergarten through eighth grade. So we had every range
Wow.
of response.
Yes.
Honestly, when I look back at that journey, the adults are the ones who struggled the most. The kids really did not care. They were intrigued. But at the end of the day, and I even had some kindergartners ask me, they said, can we we're still friends, right? Like, and I'm like, yep, that's what matters.
Yeah.
And so
Precious.
the kids really, they just wanted to know what to call me. They didn't think much more past that. The adults struggled really hard. And to answer your question, hearing she, her after making such a bold, brave, vulnerable decision, every time it's it's like a knife to the
Mm,
chest
mm,
of like,
mm.
ugh, it hurts, but not showing it and having to have this, blank face of, oh, I didn't even hear it.
Yeah.
um, Unfortunately, I've lied a lot over the years because I did hear it. Um, and I wanted to safeguard that person. And that was kind of my gut reaction was like, oh, make them feel like they didn't just like massively mess up. Um, and so it was always oh, like I didn't even hear it. Don't worry about it. Move on. I just don't want attention around it. Um, but it hurt every time. Uh, Thankfully, it happens less and less. My current workplace here, this was the first time, this was a big deal for me that I was starting a new career and I've already transitioned. I'm passing. It was now my choice to share my story and with whom and when. it was not a public announcement. Um, and so it doesn't happen as frequently now, but when it does, because I go back and visit school and I have childhood family friends and things like that, we hear it every time. Whether we say we didn't hear it or not, we heard it every time, and it hurts equally as much every time. And it's difficult because it's a constant giving out grace, and it wears on you over time, honestly. And it's hard to admit that, it's hard to say, yeah, it's really frustrating sometimes. um, but always trying to lead with grace and lead with this is an educational opportunity. That's always tried to be at the forefront of my mind.
And that's really clear in the way you share, Sydney. I don't love that you have to do that, but boy, you've clearly exercised grace, and that's how you frame everything as you share with us.
Yeah, I had an unexpected question come up probably a year after or close to it, maybe about a year after I um, started my transition, he, him pronouns. Had We have two childhood best friends. I mean, basically family. I mean, we did everything together. Vacations, we were at each other's houses all the time. We switched houses at one point for a summer and decided we were going to have different parents. So these were friends I grew up with almost from birth, very close friends. And they texted and said, when we talk about our childhood memories,
Hmm.
when you did identify as she, her, what do we refer to you as?
Yeah, yeah,
And very grateful that they were even insightful enough to
yeah,
ask that question.
yeah.
And in that instance, I said, honestly, I don't know. I hadn't thought of it. And we haven't really talked about it since, and it's not come up. And, they 100% respect my pronouns and things like that. But it was a very intriguing thought of, huh, I hadn't thought of that. And I'm not actually really sure how I feel about it. And knowing that my experience, my decisions that I'm sharing with you guys today, not a blanketed statement for the entire
Yeah.
transgender community.
Yes.
I might be okay with one thing that someone else absolutely is not okay
Yes.
with. And that's an instance. I post pictures from my past when I had long hair and identified she, her pronouns, and all my home videos with my dad. I had long hair and wore pink overalls, and I was his little girl, and he says it in the videos, which is so difficult to come to terms with now, since his passing, of like, that is all I have of him. And so I very much honor that piece of my life that, um, again, is not the same for everyone. Some people delete everything. They don't want anything to do with their past. It's very triggering for them to see and hear, um, and creates a lot of gender dysphoria. But for me, that's not the case. And for me, I almost have to protect that piece of my life and say, this is all I have with my dad. And so I've got to keep that there alive and safeguarded.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate you saying that what feels comfortable for one person may not be the same for another trans person. Yeah, just individuals. We're individuals. Our experiences are unique, and yeah, that means a lot. So maybe we transition to surgery and testosterone. Tell us a little bit about your medical treatments that you chose, and
Hmm.
yes, and how was that? And thank you for being vulnerable with this, as you have been.
Absolutely.
Thank you
Yeah.
for.
So 2019 is when I was able to see the doctor for the first time,
Mhm.
and I met with a social worker. We went over like, what are your goals with your transition, and what to you looks like a successful outcome. because again, very individualistic. This
Yeah.
is going to look different person to person,
Yeah.
in what it looks like for them to arrive home for
Yeah.
themselves and their identity.
Mm.
And
I
for
like
me, what
that.
that looked like was, I wanted to be able to pass in public as male, as cisgender male. That is what I wanted to do. That was my goal. And how do I get there? And so I started testosterone February of 2019. One thing that I love about my story is that I get to educate people on testosterone because very few actually know about it.
Yeah.
And so I have never ever had to do any type of injection of testosterone, which is the typical method and delivery of
Okay.
testosterone, especially for people who are not, aware of the ins and outs of it.
Yeah.
So my testosterone is actually a gel, and it's the consistency of hand sanitizer, essentially. And it's just a topical application. I rub it on my shoulders in the morning, shower at night, and that is it. And I grew a full beard. And
Medicine.
so,
Wow.
so yeah, medicine's
Mm-hmm.
crazy. And
Mm-hmm.
so that is my form. Since then, they have also created patches, like a dermal patch. Um, I have very sensitive skin, so it's not something I cared to even try because what I had was working. Um, Over the years, insurance has gone up and down and changed, and my benefits have changed at work to workplace. Um, and some workplaces didn't cover it at all. I had to apply for a special medication program, um, really intended for low income families, because they were saying my testosterone was going to be $500 to $600 a month, which is not feasible for anybody I know in
Sure.
my life.
Sure.
And so thankfully, I was able to qualify for the medical or the prescription assistance program for many years. But stressful. You have to reapply for it every year. You can't make too much to not qualify. And so that was always a very stressful point in my transition was how am I going to get my medication and afford it? Thankfully, my current provider and current benefits is $10 a month. And it's incredible. I I cried real tears when I found that out. So that is a big piece of accessing medical care is the cost of prescription and insurance, whether it covers it or not, and greatly dependent on your workplace and what benefit package they have. Um,
Is it dependent also on any sort of specific diagnosis?
yes, yeah. So I don't know medication wise if it is, but I know for my surgery, um, that was a big piece, was coding it with a gender dysphoria diagnosis code. Um, and I've had two different experiences. So I had top surgery with Dr. Gallagher. At the time, she was based in Indianapolis, which was beautiful because she was local. She is one of the top gender affirmation surgeons really in the world. Very cutting edge. She's published a ton. She's traveled a ton. I'm extraordinarily blessed that I got to have her as my surgeon. Um, and that was August of 2019. So I started testosterone February of 2019. I had my top surgery August of 2019. For those that don't know, that is essentially a double mastectomy. However, it is done very differently to create more of a masculine chest. The scars are placed differently, they're done differently than what you would use, say, for a patient with breast cancer and they're removing breast tissue in that way. The procedure is going to be done totally different. And so I had a lot of people who made very ignorant comments, when I was getting my surgery of like, oh, I wish I could have a, breast reduction surgery. And it's like, yeah, that's my back pain's so bad. It's
Mm.
like, that's not what's happening.
Yeah.
Uh, and also different procedure
Mm-hmm.
entirely. So, um, yeah, that was that was my first surgery that I had. Again, family was very supportive. I was very nervous to tell my mom. I actually wrote her a letter um, because I just didn't feel like I could tell her in person. And again, I don't know her exact response, but I remember just getting a text. I mean, I like physically mailed it to her house. We live right down the road from each other, and it was just kind of like a got your letter, love you. Just keeping it very simple. Um, I'll have more questions later, type
Yeah.
thing. But she wanted to be involved. She wanted to be supportive, which was important. So that was my first surgery, and I cannot emphasize enough how affirming this surgery was for me. I don't think there are actual words in the English language that like describe that level of euphoria. Waking up, you're swollen, you're coming out of anesthesia, you don't even really know what's going on. I'm all bound up in bandages, but I very vividly remember this massive relief of like, and pride. Like you did it. You have arrived. you
Yeah.
you are finally in a body that feels like yours. Um, and that feeling only got stronger and stronger as I healed. Um, and really, I think really launched my transition of like this. I can start being happy. I can allow myself to start being happy because I can look in the mirror and be proud of what I see and also connect with what I see in the reflection, and know that like that's me. That's not this other person in the mirror that I don't know.
Wow. Powerful. Powerful, powerful.
So that was my first surgery. My
Yes.
second surgery, actually just had it really within, I think, the last year and a half. So very recently. So it's been several years since. And this is a newer surgery from Dr. Gallagher. I don't know when she first started doing it, but I know I was on the newer-ish side of it. But it's a torso masculinization procedure. Um, and really it's just taking that more feminine hip physique and torso physique and creating more masculine physique. Um, I struggled a lot with this procedure
Hmm.
mentally, in the sense that I knew I wanted it, but the method in which they have two different ways they can do the procedure. One is with like a scar that goes all the way across from like hip bone to hip bone. Um, that is typically for patients with like a larger BMI. I did not need that procedure. Mine was able to be done with laparoscopic liposuction, and it's targeted in a way that it's eliminating your curved hips and creating that kind of masculine V shape. Um, but the fact that they were using liposuction for me was like, I'm getting plastic surgery and that's a bad thing. And this is cosmetic and this is
Yeah.
very vain. And I really struggled with the
Hmm.
mental side of that until it was done. And then I was like, wait, this is great. And so I had to really come to terms with myself of this is not for cosmetic reason.
Yes.
This is for my mental health.
Yeah.
This is that I still look in the mirror and I still see some disconnect. Obviously, my top surgery helped a ton, but I still see some disconnect, and I still, um, I find myself hiding. I'm going to wear baggier clothes because I'm nervous of the way people will see me, and think that I look more feminine, and things like that. So I was recognizing that I was still very scared about a more feminine physique. And I just had to come mentally to terms with this is not a cosmetic procedure, um,
Yes.
for the reason of cosmetics.
Yes. Yes.
Um, Not that plastic surgery is bad in any way. That was just my own
You're not
personal
giving,
thoughts
yeah, you're
around
not
it.
judging all that.
No, not at all.
Those choices. Yeah.
Not at all. And so yeah, that was a big struggle for me mentally
Yeah.
to kind of get there.
Yeah.
So
We're so much better these days in understanding the body mind connection. I mean, we're so much more aware of that and practicing noticing our bodies and our minds and how they connect and how much one informs the other and more holistic thing. So that just makes sense that would be a life
Yeah.
changing procedures.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
very active. That was one of the things I talked to with Dr. Gallagher was, I eat relatively well. I won't say super healthy,
yeah,
but relatively well.
yeah,
But I exercise a ton. I mean, 4 or 5 days a week regularly. And I was not seeing any progress. I had plateaued. And that was really my expression to her was I'm almost frustrated with myself because I feel like I should just be able to do this and
yes.
achieve this physique that I want. And she was very quick to say, that's not necessarily true.
Mm-hmm.
This is the way your body's built, and
Yeah,
there are things you can't control with diet and exercise. And that's one of them that some people maybe can and have different physique and different, chemical balances in their body.
yes,
But for you, that might not be the case. And this is just where your body has extra fat deposits, and you're going to have a more feminine physique because of it. Um, so, all credit to her. She's a phenomenal surgeon
yeah.
and very good about educating the patients on why their body responds the way that it does or doesn't. Um, and very gifted, very talented in what she
Is
does.
she exclusively transition surgeon? Is that,
She does
or is she more
other
broad?
She does other procedures.
Mm-hmm.
Really, I think her focus is on gender health and
Yeah.
gender affirmation
Okay.
procedures.
Okay.
But I know she has done work outside of that as well. But she offers many different types of procedures um, for the transgender community. And she's got a really good platform on social media as well for anyone looking. Very educational, and she does a very good job through that channel.
so you said that part of your goal for these all of these procedures was to pass between testosterone, top surgery, and torso masculinization. Which one do you feel makes the biggest difference toward that goal?
Yeah, top surgery for sure. That really, I mean, there's only so much you can do, before that procedure. I wore a binder for probably a year, and that's just like a compression. Mine was a tank top, a compression around the chest, just to try and flatten your chest as much as possible to not be visible. But that's really uncomfortable. You're really only supposed to wear it for like 10 hours a day at the max. And so, again, you think about your people who work 12-hour shift jobs. If you're only supposed to wear this for 10 hours and then it's kind of considered unsafe or could cause other problems, back problems, neck problems, shoulders, whatever. Um, what are they going to do? They're in the middle of their work shift. They're left without a choice here. Swimming, you're not supposed to wear it when swimming. You're not supposed to wear it when exercising. Those types of things. So it worked for what I needed it to, but it was limiting.
Sure.
And at baseline, uncomfortable. And so, yeah, top surgery for me was probably the biggest, and obviously starting testosterone. I was very fortunate, and my doctor continually reminds me, like, your body responded very well to this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like from my very first dose started seeing changes. I stopped having a menstrual cycle day one and
Wow.
never had one again. And that is like extremely uncommon.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a big piece for transgender males is, you know, their menstrual cycle, spotting throughout the years, on and off. Um, how do you mentally cope with that, but also physically be prepared that this could happen? And men's restrooms are not equipped with feminine hygiene products or even trash receptacles in the stall.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
um, that's a huge barrier and a safety concern in a very vulnerable space. Like I said, thankfully, I've never had to experience that. Day one, my body responded very well, and I think that is uncommon.
Mm-hmm.
um, but as far as passing, yeah, starting testosterone was huge. The beard helped. It took a long time to get there. I look back on photos and it's painful. Again, you're going through puberty twice, but this time you're a grown adult. Yeah, when it comes down to it, it's scary.
Yeah.
It really
Yeah.
is. We
Hmm.
talked about this a little bit
Yeah.
prior of I am just here living my life. I am a normal human being, just like everybody else. I have the same struggles that you do, that I don't want to wake up in the morning and work out. I, you know, don't have time to go get an oil change. My kids won't eat their vegetables. Like, we're living the same life. Um, I might have some extra barriers in mine, and I might have some extra safety concerns, but at the end of the day, I am a human being, and it is wild to me that anyone cares as much as they do about my marriage and my
Yeah.
identity.
Yeah. I want to move to faith, church world.
Hmm.
And I know when I first was aware of your story, I had heard you share a little bit about that experience for you and your wife. You're both people of faith, and that matters to you to have a place to worship and to yeah, to exercise your faith, and share a little bit about what that's been like.
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, we are both people of faith, and both grew up in Christian homes. Um, and so faith has always been a very integrated part of my daily life. Um, and also a very public part of my life. I don't know so much for my wife, but my father was the music leader at our church. He also, I mean, he was larger than life kind of
Mhm.
guy, stay at home dad, PTO person, cooked, cleaned, sewed our Halloween costumes.
Nice.
But he, led VBS, and he wrote the skits for church, and just very, very prominent figure in our church. And so it was a very public platform to live on from a faith perspective, that, oh, we're the Dressler family, and
Yeah.
we're going to show up, and we're going to be involved, and we're going to probably be leading whatever's going on. And so you got to be all in.
Yeah.
And as I got older and when I went to college, very much opened up my perspective of, like, wow, there are different ways to worship in
Mm.
general. Like,
Yeah.
people raise their hands. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was actually big for me, of like, wow, there's different postures in which I could actually sing. And music is a huge part of my life. And so being able to express myself in worship was its own exploration. Um, and so having that foundation for both my wife and I, we knew getting married and in our relationship that faith needed to be really a core pillar in our life and the foundation of our marriage. Um, I remember even back to when we first started dating, um, really asked each other if we wanted to date. It was like, hang on a second. You go, like, talk to Jesus, and I'll go talk to Jesus, and then let's come back in a month and see what happened. And we joke about it. It's very lighthearted, but it was very honest. And,
Yeah.
like, if you and we still stand by this today in our marriage, of, if you at any point say, my relationship with Jesus is being hindered through our relationship, or I do not feel that this is where I am, or who I'm supposed to be with, or the way that I'm supposed to express myself, as painful and as devastating and as I don't even know how I would cope with that situation, that would be, I have to honor that. And having that mutual respect of, your relationship with Christ comes first, no matter what. Um, I'm not saying I'd be okay with it, but I'm saying we have agreed to respect
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And so our journey in the church has been extremely rocky. Um, we, through dating and through our engagement, we were going to a church I had been going for about 7 years. Jenna had recently started going with me. Loved it, felt very integrated, decided we wanted to be a part of a small group. And originally we had been told, um, well, you can't be in a married small group because you're not married yet. You're engaged. And at the time I was using she, her pronouns. And so I was like, it's an easy answer. And so they said, well, you can be in an all women's group or you can be in a singles group. Those were our two options. And at that time, again, I was using she, her pronouns, but it wasn't, I knew there was that disconnect. And so that, a women's only group, I had cut my hair, I was dressing masculine. That didn't feel like the right place for me.
I
Um,
hate being at a men's prayer breakfast or any kind of segregated male space. No, no, thank you. I'll just stay home.
yeah,
Yes,
yes,
same,
exactly.
same.
And
Female.
so
Yeah,
I knew that was not the place for me. And again, a singles group, it was like, yeah, we're engaged though. Like, we're not single.
yeah.
Do you have a dating group? Do you have an engaged group? And so at the time, we just chose not to. We said, okay, we'll be married in a couple of months. So we'll be back. And that's exactly what we did. And I think that was their worst fear,
Yeah.
is that we decided to come back and say, all right, we're married. We're
Yeah,
ready to
so,
be a part of
suddenly
a
the
group.
technicality is not helping.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
And so then we were met with, well, we have an introduction night, and you guys can come to that. And we'll all meet here on campus. The rest of the weeks are in the homes of the leader, but this one is at the church. You get to know your group first and decide if it's a good fit. And we loved it. We went, we got to be part of a married small group for the first session, and probably 4 or 5 days later, we get the call. And they say, hey, you attended our small group. And unfortunately, we don't recognize you guys
Mm,
as being married.
mm.
And we don't honor that. And so, again, if you would like to be a part of a small group, you can be in a women's only group
Oh,
or a singles group. And I actually had this was coming from a pastor. I actually had the group leader of that particular small group reach out afterwards, and I just profusely apologized and said,
okay.
I'm so sorry this happened. Really didn't feel like they had any say in it. I didn't know. We had just met them one time, so I certainly wasn't expecting them to go to bat for us. They were not in support of that answer.
Okay.
And that was
Okay.
affirming for us of,
Yeah.
this is painful, but it's nice to know that at least somebody like within the group is upset too.
Yeah.
So we left that church. We didn't feel safe there. Um, Painful as can be, of don't let us try it out.
Yeah.
Just tell us no. What was the point of that? You knew our story ahead of time. So that felt really manipulative of, I don't know, seemed odd that was the way they went about it. Um, Fast forward, I don't know timeline wise where all these fall, but
Yeah.
my home church growing up, we, I believe we were married at the time, if I can remember. Not sure if I had started my transition or not in the timeline, but we had gone to a Good Friday service with my family. My pastor had asked to see me after the service and stay after and meet with him. And quite frankly, I didn't think much of it because I have a great relationship with him and grew up and
Yeah.
super involved in the church. And he told me in the meeting that it was brought to his attention and it was discussed among whomever, that I would not be allowed to take communion on Easter Sunday. That was coming up in
Sydney.
2 days, three
So
days.
sorry.
Um, and that was
Mm.
really the small group at the other church was just kind of like that's stupid.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this was
It is
home.
stupid.
Um, this hit very differently. I had
Of course.
devoted my life to this place.
Of course.
Uh,
And
my
that's
dad's
literal
legacy was in this
excommunication.
place. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
very
Communion. Mm.
personal,
So sorry.
um, very personal, like communion itself is just a very personal religious experience and faith experience between you and Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And to have someone say, you don't get to
Mm-hmm.
take it. Like I didn't even understand. I didn't understand why. And quite frankly, I have no idea. I think I blacked out. I have no idea how I
Yeah.
responded.
Yeah.
I was really young still. I mean, I would have been like 20 something, young 20s. And I'm in this authoritative figure in my life of like
Of
a
course.
pastor that you grew up with. And so it was just
Of
kind of,
course.
I assume I responded, and I really honestly don't know, of just like, I don't agree with that and that hurts, and but I don't have anything else to say.
Yeah.
Um, Now I went home and again, it's Easter weekend. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what more family centered church weekend can there be? And I told my family what the meeting was about and what had happened. And again, you have to remember very prominent figures in our family in the church. And this was the first time, and this is years after I came out, the first time that I truly believed and saw firsthand my family have my back. Um, and my mom, my sister-in-law, my brother, my sister, and everyone in our family said, if you cannot take communion, we are not taking communion. Um, and in our church, your row goes up, stands in front, takes communion, goes sits down. And so for the usher to get to our aisle and my entire family in a very public setting and a very prominent church family say, skip us, we're not going,
Mm-hmm.
sent a
Right.
really big message. And I've never been more proud of my family than in that
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
Um, since then, that pastor has reached out and we had coffee. We had an extremely restorative conversation. Um, and, um, you know, the doctrine and the liturgy has not changed at the church. So it's not that I'm like, awesome, I can't wait to be back. um, but he did apologize. And that was very healing for me to hear that and to have that recognition and kind of have that restorative conversation with him of that was really painful. And you really left me out to dry with my faith and on my own.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you're supposed to be the one that I go to
Yes.
for that guidance and for
Yes.
that support.
Yeah.
So that was a very difficult
Of
situation
course. Of
and
course.
very public as well that we went through.
Yeah. 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 And communion, taking of the bread and the cup, is the defining sacrament of our faith in Christ, and the host is Jesus, not your pastor, not me as a pastor. And yeah, that's human daring to tread where Jesus is like, no, this is my table. This is yeah. And so I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. I'm thankful for that conversation for you,
Yeah.
and
Thank you. Yeah,
yeah,
I
I hope
appreciate it.
that
Very grateful for the conversation as well. And
yeah,
I've been able to
yeah,
take communion since then. And
yeah,
like I said, am I attending regularly and a member of the church? No,
yeah,
but my
yeah,
family still goes there. And so
yeah,
it really did open the doors back up in a sense of safety of
yeah,
I'm not going to attend regularly, but I know I can come back for
yeah,
Christmas or Easter or whenever I want,
yeah,
and I will be welcomed.
yeah, yeah,
And I am.
yeah,
That's all there is to it. So
yeah. I'm
aside from that, we've certainly hit other roadblocks along the way. We've kind of church hopped for a long time, which is excruciatingly exhausting.
Hmm.
And we went again. We've had in various places, not all at the same one, but we've just been met with a lot of no's. No, you can't, be a door greeter. You can't
Mm.
be in children's ministry. You can't be on the worship team. You can't be in small groups. You can be in this group, but not this group. We don't see you as being married. Again, just time after time, we go, we're welcomed, we're accepted, we're told they love us, and then we're there for 6 months, and we start to get invested and say, all right, I'd like to be involved. And they're like, oh, well, we didn't know that was the case, and we want you to come. We'd love to have you here, but you can't do this, 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 or this.
Mhm.
Um, and again, difficult to accept. I don't know if this is news to the world, but I don't have an agenda of holding the door open and saying, good morning, welcome. And
Yeah. Yeah.
it's wild to me that, especially, I get hung up on the door greeter one
Yeah.
of like,
Yeah.
why?
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and another big pivotal moment for me was we've been going to a church for a couple years, and I was baptized at birth, and that was just part of our denomination. That's what they did. That was the customary, but I didn't get to choose that. And I went through confirmation. I went through the classes. I did the talking in front of the congregation and expressing my faith. But again, and I've told my mom this, I didn't have a choice in that. What if I had said, no, I'm not doing confirmation? You guys wouldn't have allowed that. So that wasn't my choice either. I meant what I said, but it wasn't my choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so I was very intrigued and very much pursuing. I wanted to be baptized again, and have it be my choice and have that defining moment of I am publicly expressing my faith and it's my choice. Um, and they had an upcoming baptismal Sunday, and I reached out and I got a call from a random campus pastor that was not my campus pastor that I'd never talked to before. I must have drawn the short straw from the group, and the conversation went very poorly, and basically just said like, you're not allowed to be baptized here unless you change your ways moving forward and detransition, and what you're doing is sinful, and if you continue to choose to be sinful, then you can't be baptized, which
Yeah.
there's so many arguments to that statement.
Yeah. Yeah.
And really, I ended the conversation. It did not go well. And I ended the conversation with just, we're never going to see eye to eye, so there's really no point continuing this conversation. Um, you're not really willing to listen either. And there's clearly no budging on your decision. And so that was a really difficult one as well, because we've been going to the
Of
church for
course.
several years. We had friends there. It's very painful. Again, a very personal decision, and being told that I was not allowed to do that.
I'm so sorry. There's got to be so much grief to me about that.
Yeah. Over the years, I've done public speaking before, and certainly around the conversation of faith. And, I've accrued these very affirming experiences, whether that's starting testosterone or my gender affirmation surgery or the support of my family, the use of my pronouns,
Yeah.
all very affirming things for me. Nothing has been more affirming than the fact that my relationship with Christ only got better
Yeah.
after I came out. It only strengthened. I talk about that feeling of coming home to my family, that I had distanced myself for so long, and that was the
Yeah.
same exact feeling with Christ. Was,
Yeah.
I can come
Yeah.
home.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can finally talk to you.
Whole
I
and
can
yeah.
finally relate with you and feel like I am home. Um, and so, from my faith perspective, it really soared after coming out, and certainly through my transition. And
Wow.
sure, we've hit some really traumatic experiences in church. We're currently not going anywhere, which neither my wife and I like. We want to be somewhere. We're given plenty of suggestions, but
Yeah.
we haven't found home.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
through that, we've both been able to maintain our relationship with Christ and keep our faith strong. And again, nothing more affirming to me that this is who I am. Because at the end of the day, in my relationship with Christ, all of that, everything we've talked about today is stripped
Yeah.
away because
Yeah.
I'm a child of God, and
Yeah.
that's my identity.
Yeah.
And that's where it all comes back to.
Yeah. And we're working, we're trying to chip away at that.
Yeah, we are. We are. And
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
been progress made, and there's lots of work to do. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, I think that's a perfect next step of, okay, what can we do? Um,
Yes. Yes.
and
Yes.
I've never been in church leadership or anything like that,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
never been of authority in a church. But
Yeah.
from a member perspective and a guest perspective, there is a lot we can do. And
Yeah.
I had a wonderful conversation with a pastor several years ago who said the same thing. He said, "What can I do
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
be welcoming? I'm in a
Yeah.
church right now that the doctrine is not affirming, and I alone am not going to change that." He's very close to retirement, so again, his own personal life, he's not really looking to rock the boat at the
Yeah.
really end of his retirement,
Yeah.
but he wants to make steps and he wants to be able to be welcoming. How do I do that? And there are simple ways. My best example is the language we use. And that's a learning curve, remember. We got to learn the language first. But when we talk about marriage in a church, what do they always say? Marriage is between a man and a woman.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for me, hard to hear.
Yeah.
Especially when Jenna and I were identifying as in a same-sex relationship.
Yes.
Very hard to hear. Instantly, we're out the door.
Yeah.
Instantly. I mean, I don't care how wonderful of a production you got going on, out the door. And when you go to the doctor, when you fill out your emergency contact and you list the person you're married to, and it says, what's your relationship to them? What are your options? You put spouse. The doctor is not assuming that every person that's married is in a sex relationship and refers to their marital partner as spouse.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We all use spouse.
Mm-hmm.
All of
Mm-hmm.
us.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not every day when discussing our partner with someone else, but literally that is language that we use across the board for everyone. And that can be used. We can say,
Yes.
your
Yes.
spouse in church,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And the phrasing I love to come back to and especially when I talk to this pastor is really when I started using it was, who does it help and who does it hurt?
Mm. Good.
Using spouse in a sermon as an identifier as whomever you're married to. You're not taking any stance. You're not
Yes.
making any assumptions. You're just
Yeah.
using the term spouse, which literally means the person you're married to.
Mm-hmm.
It hurts no one, but it helps an entire community of people.
Yes. Yes.
Um, and so I challenge people with that is when you look at your language, is there a way? Maybe you are in a situation where you can't take a stance. And so how do you create a welcoming environment in doing so within your means? And that's what I always go back to is, who does it help? Who does it hurt? Evaluate that
Good
first.
questions.
And
Yeah.
then see where to go from.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And let people hold doors.
Everybody gets to hold the door.
I mean,
Everybody gets to hold the door.
So that was our discussion with Sydney Dressler, which I really appreciate the candor and the vulnerability that he came with, but I am just aghast at his description of church life and how church has treated him and his spouse.
Yeah.
And the one thing it really brings home for me is something that's come up in several of the discussions that we've had lately about just churches don't know what they're doing. They're not, their staff are not all on the same page. They're not clearly communicating their expectations. And it comes back to what church clarity is saying, that clarity is kindness. Even if the answer is going to be no, if you can say that up front, you can save people 6 months of investment before you say, oh, actually, you can't be a door greeter. No, actually, we won't baptize you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Some campus pastor you've never talked to calling you and saying, hey, let me tell you my opinion of your lifestyle that doesn't match anything else that you're experiencing in the church, right? That disconnect is so much worse than if people would just have an upfront, clear statement.
Yes. Yeah, it's odd because it doesn't match any other communication that they've had. It doesn't match. It doesn't match a definition of what it means to be Christ-like. That's for sure. Um, um, at the very least, like you say, be clear about if there is a boundary or a guideline that the church has agreed upon. Yeah, and it's our tendency to want to be nice as Christians, I think. You know, we want to be nice and we sacrifice relationship. Sydney's story about the how it was conveyed that he was not able to be a door greeter, was that the situation? Was someone that wasn't even anyone that he knew or had ever had any interaction with. His own pastor, it wasn't his particular campus pastor, someone that he didn't know, had never met,
Right.
that let him know. And it's especially alarming to me to know that the communication was about baptism. I mean, one of our fundamental, highly valued Christian sacraments, whether it's as a child or as an adult, wherever that happens in our faith communities, to not match the weight of that value with a relational way of speaking to a person about that is it's just a, as you say, a disconnect. Yeah. And aghast is a great word to use. Yeah. So we hear this beautiful story of someone, as he says, arriving home, you know, through his whole transition process. And then when we come to that part of our conversation, to hear the church described, and by a person who is not bitter, who's not, I mean, who is very
Impressively.
generous. Yes, who continues to be very generous when someone apologizes or when someone um, uh, attempts a different way of relating. Yeah, we are failing. We are failing significantly.
But I hope this conversation is helpful for people, right? Including
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people who,
Mm-hmm.
maybe they know somebody who has transitioned, but they're not close enough to them to be able to ask those uncomfortable
Yeah,
questions or awkward questions.
yeah, yeah.
Sydney is very gracious and willing to share about his perspective on those things. So I hope that this has been helpful. Did you have any other takeaways, Karma?
Yeah, yeah, just helpful for parents of kids with gender dysphoria. Helpful for a young adult or a young person who might be experiencing those feelings, just to put language to some of that. And not assuming transition is going to be where that leads, but any time there is that dissonance within ourselves, we want to pay attention to it. And yeah, Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thankful. I'm thankful for the generosity that he's offered us.
Yeah, and there's actually something incredibly universal in his story, right? These
Yes.
universal experiences
Yeah.
of being in school and beginning to associate yourself with a gender identity, right? We think of that as something that only trans people go through because for trans people there's a disconnect,
Yeah.
right? So they have this
Yeah.
acute experience of it.
Yes.
But we all have
Yes.
relationships to our gender, right? And it's not that misgendering is uniquely painful or offensive to trans people. Everyone hates being misgendered, right?
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
particularly if it's done in a deliberately like weaponizing fashion, right?
Yes. Yes. We want to fit in. We want to have connection with our peers. Yeah. And we're trying to, as we grow, we're trying to figure that out. So yeah, there is a universality about it.
All right. Well, do you want to? Are we good to leave it there?
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds good.
All right. Thank you to Sydney, and we will see you next time.